There was this young farm worker, and well, he struggled with his wage at such a low wage. He struggled to put food on the table for his family. Though all the while he went around his farm work on his master's land, there were hundreds of pheasants flying around. Well, it came to crunch time. This one day he got nothing to put on the table for that evening meal. So he resolved to take just one pheasant. Just one, to feed his family. So when it got dark, off he went. He got a snare, a long pole with a noose on the end. He went to a tree where he knew the pheasants roosted. He could see them silhouetted against the sky. He put the pole up, put the noose right over a big plump cock pheasant and pull cord. As quick as I've told you, that's how it happened. He got the pheasant, he put it under his jacket and he made his way home. The pot was on and he was sitting there in front of the fire plucking the pheasant. When the door burst open and in came the gamekeeper with the constable. Well, they caught him red-handed, as they say, so he was taken away and thrown in a cell, and the next morning he was in the courthouse on trial. Now, all his friends and neighbours had gone along to the court, which was just a room, not much unlike this really, to see how he was going to get on, because most of them had done exactly the same themselves. And the judge, he looked round that room and he saw a lot of people who needed to be taught a lesson. So he reached out for his black cap. There was a gasp went round the room. Placed the cap on his head and he sentenced the young man to be taken away and killed by hanging. Well, as he was taken away, that lad looked round the room and he saw all his friends and neighbours there who were no better or no worse than him. He stopped and he pointed a crooked finger and he put a curse on him. He said that 12 months to the day he would come back and haunt them. And he was taken off and hung. So that night in the pub, all those people were there and they were talking about this curse put on them. They're quite worried about it. So they decided to raise a glass to that young man that night and to come back 12 months to the day. It was 25th of October, if I remember right. Come back 12 months to the day and raise another glass to break the curse. So they did. 12 months to the day they returned. But in the pub that night, there was a stranger, a travelling bloke. And he was a braggart, a boastful man. And he heard all these simple country folk talking about ghosts and curses. And he started to make fun of them, saying that he didn't believe in ghosts and couldn't understand why they did. And he said, if any of them would like a little wager, what he was prepared to do was get to the churchyard that evening and stand over that poacher's grave with 1 foot either side the grave as the clock struck midnight. Well, one or two of them fancied a little wager, but none of them fancied going to the churchyard that evening. So he said, all right, he'd go on his own. But they said, well, how will we know you've done it? He said, well, you see this knife in my belt? What I'll do, the stroke of midnight, I'll plunge this knife into the ground over the grave. and you can come along first light in the morning to make sure that I've done it. So this was agreed. And as it approached midnight, the stranger put on his thick woolen cloak, he folded it round him, and off he went to the churchyard. He stood there, with the foot either side of the grave. And as the church clock started to strike, he took the knife and he plunged it right into the ground up to the hilt. And just then, he heard something behind him. He turned to look and he decided to run for it. But when he tried to run, he found he couldn't move. He was pinned to the ground. And what he thought was that the ghost had come up out the grave and grabbed him by the ankles and was holding him on the spot. Well, he had an heart attack and died there and then. The next morning, when the locals came down, they found that fella dead on top of the grave. Also, they noticed that the knife had been stuck right in the ground over the grave, exactly how he said he would do it. But it had also gone through 2 layers of his cloak, and that's what was holding him to the ground and pinning him to the ground. Now, there's them that say what he actually heard that night was a ghost. Others say it was just the mad October wind whistling through the trees. Well, I know what I think, but you'll have to make your own minds up what you think.